Hey everybody, how are you guys doing? I'm Marcos Mateu. I'm the author of books like Framed Ink and Framed Perspective, volumes one and two, Framed Drawing Techniques, and coming very soon, my new book, Framed Ink 2. So anyway, I'm really excited to be here with all of you guys now, and in Lightbox Expo one more year. Digital this time around, fantastic, good to go. Um, anyway, this event just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's gonna go forward and fantastic from here. So anyway, like I said, I've published these books. My first book was published 10 years ago now, or it came out on summer 2010 in Comic Con, and it was called Framed Ink, and it was about composition for visual storytellers, as you possibly know. And then after that, I published a number of books from the same series, Framed series, as a series of instructional books for visual storytellers. And in them, I go through everything that I consider really important and basic and essential to know for people like us that want to do, stuff in visual storytelling. It could be movies, animation, live action. It can be graphic novel. It can be illustration. It can be any other of these disciplines and things that we're so enamored about. So fantastic. The first book, Frame Ink. 1, was about composition, and it was composition from the point of view of having very roughly, very essentially, I'm going to say now, because the book is about a lot of things, but essentially is about taking into account not only the physical objects and bodies that we have, characters, houses, architecture, mountains, landscape, etc., whatever it is that we have in front of the camera, not only having that into account, but also lighting as an essential part of what composition is about. And that's very important because the moment you have a certain scene or scenario that you want to picture in your with your camera, the moment you start changing the lighting around, things change completely. And so, these are the two things that we need to have into account: the objects and the lighting. And they blend in together and they become one. And that's essential. Now, in this second book, I'm talking about, I'm expanding my view on composition. And I'm talking about a way to compose images that I use every day in my work. And it's actually because one of the main points of this book is how to compose with different frame formats. We can have widescreen, we can have super widescreen, we can have vertical format, we can have a square format. Nowadays, you know that it's not anymore about just about the film screen, the theater screen, or the widescreen TV or whatever it is that we look at. We also have smartphones that are vertical. We also have social media that's square format. And how do we compose to make it look good and to convey the visual message, the narrative message that we want to convey in any one of these formats? Now, the way I do it is by looking at the frame as a game field. It's almost like if I wanted to play a game of football with some friends in a stadium, and I can play it in a professional stadium that I assume they all have some type of standard proportions and size. It can be, in the empty lot around the corner just to have some fun, whatever it is. But every time there's going to be a different format, a different aspect ratio to this game field, and so we're going to have to adapt. My friends and I, we're going to have to adapt, to this new format every time so that we can play the game properly and effectively. And that's essentially what I'm trying to do here. Um, I look at the frame as I don't look at the limits of the frame. Obviously, like I said, there's going to be horizontal, vertical, square, whatever it is. But I don't feel constrained by it. I look at it not as a frame that sort of gets me all caught up there and I can't move from that area. No, I look at it as opportunities to expand the energy that a shot requires. because every shot requires an amount of energy, and that's what it is about. The energy can be very high if it's an action sequence or a dramatic moment. It can be very low if it's like a more subdued moment, like a quiet moment. But whatever it is, there is a level of energy, and I see this game field as an opportunity to expand and adapt to whichever format it is. It's a little bit like I don't know. You open the window, air comes into the room. The room is going to, the air is going to, the wind and the air is going to take the shape of that room. Water is the same thing. Use the format that you have, use the space that you have uh, to expand and to explain and to convey the energy that you need to show for the shot. Don't take it as, again, don't take it as something that's going to be making you feel claustrophobic or anything like that. Take it as, well, it's horizontal, it's widescreen, it's not so wide, it's vertical, it's square. It's great. It's opportunities to work with this energy. Anyway, the important thing is that we get to the meat of the book and what the book talks about. Um, I go about this with a number of principles or ideas. I would call it lines of tension. I would call it action reaction, pressure and release, balance and imbalance. As you see, most of these points have an action and a reaction. Pressure, release, balance, and balance. Why? Because you have to think in terms of whatever we do on the screen, on the format within the panel. You have to do it like whatever you do is not an isolated action. If you put a tiny character in a big vast type landscape, like a desert, for example, it's not about that little dot. It's not about that little dot in the desert. It's the relationship between that dot and the rest of the space that you have. And the rest of the space that you have doesn't matter if it's horizontal, vertical, square. Um, Again, each one of the formats is going to be better than others at explaining certain things visually. But again, think of the relationship between what you do and the rest of the shot. I always say that the way I draw is basically almost like a chameleon. They move the eyes independently. I have one eye on what I do, the other one kind of hovering around the drawing surface so that I can have an idea of what I'm doing is affecting everything else. And that's important. So we're drawing some examples about this. They're going to be very rough sketches, very quick, stick figure type, so don't be scared. Now here, say for example you have this a horizontal, I'm drawing now this horizontal panel, and say for example, normally, in many occasions we would feel tempted to go, say by thirds, for example. So it's a classic, okay? So, and then we would have, we have a guy here on horseback, and that's going to be the horizon line on the ground plane. And then maybe this is the sun or a vulture, flying around him or very menacing or whatever. Okay, so we know that this is a convincing, balanced, technically well-constructed, composition. But let's undo this really quick. How about I want something more extreme? I want something that explains how tough it is to be in that desert, how extreme the situation, how tense it is. Maybe I want to go more intense with it. Maybe I want to put the guy lower. I don't want to be in the third crossing anymore. That used to be here. We had all these third crossings, etc. Approximately. Now I want the guy over here. And now I want to counterbalance this with maybe the sun over here. And now we're creating, it's not just about these two elements separately. It's about these two elements in relationship with each other and within the format. Meaning now we stretch this line. There's a line of tension here. What happens? If we do the thirds that we did before, we would have basically, like I said, we would have the guy over here on horseback in the middle of the desert. This would be the sun. Now these two elements are much closer together. The tension is not so intense. think about, for example, sometimes I like to have the feeling that I'm thinking about these things, or I'm feeling them almost physically, right? When I'm drawing. I think it's very important. I think about these like, for example, I get a rubber band and I stretch the rubber band with my two hands. And I can use two fingers, one from either hand, and then maybe I can put more fingers in it and start stretching this rubber band in different directions. It can be a triangle, it can be a rectangle, a square, it can be just a line if you stretch it with only two fingers. Anyway, so the possibilities are enormous, but what you have to take into account is that whatever you do, whatever you stretch, if you have, say, for example, the rubber band like this, and you kind of get your fingers closer together, now the rubber band is going to relax. You're going to have this a lot more relaxed of a line. Or you can stretch it like this, or you can stretch it a lot more than that, right? And or you can turn it into a triangle. But whatever you do here is going to affect here. Pushing point A away from point B is not just about pulling point A. It's about the distance, increasing distance between A and B. So it's not just about, you're not only doing this, it's affecting that, and it's affecting that, and therefore it's affecting the whole composition. Um, so lines of tension, that would be an example. What happens here is that, okay, let me go create another layer real quick. What happens here is that, so what if we have a vertical format? Now you can still, yeah, you can go by thirds and all that, but you can still do that extreme composition if that's what you want to do. That's just one example. I want to say this demo today, it just a very a slight, very in a way shallow view of what the book is about. There's a lot of material there, but I want to tell you an introduction to what the whole thing is about. So these are just some basics that obviously can get a lot more complex than that, and you can do all sorts of compositions with these techniques. But for now, we're focusing on this. Now you can have the sun over here. If you have the sun over here, for example, the tension of the visual tension of the shot is not so strong, because now you have these two elements very close together, and then you have a lot of space that could be potentially wasted the space, like it's doing nothing there. Not necessarily, but it could be wasted. Now here's the thing. Now we do this, and we recompose the shot that we had in the horizontal frame, and now, but with the same philosophy. Again, using the space that you have available to play that football game that we were talking about. And so it doesn't matter if it's vertical, horizontal, whatever it is, you still have the tension here, the tension. Now, this tension can be subdued and toned down a little bit if we put, say, for example, an intermediate type element. That could be distant mountains. Now, all of a sudden, maybe it becomes more of a triangle, because if we have a mountain here, now it becomes a triangle shape, all right? But still, you have that kind of a tension and elements that you play with, all right? What that means is that if you want to play the tension down, you want to bring, let's say, for example, the horseman together with the sun, or a cloud, or the vulture that's flying over here, or over him, or whatever. Then you can do is bring these two together. Give me 1 second here. There you go. Bring these two together. Lower the camera a little bit more, in the sense that we're going to get more of the landscape, more of the ground, and all of a sudden now we have the sun over here. Now these two are closer together. The tension is not so big. Everything is a little bit more compressed in this area, and so now, and it's even like a composition by thirds. It's good. It's great. It's just that the tension is not like that anymore. I'm not saying a composition by thirds or by fourths or whatever it is necessarily about more or less tension. I'm just saying these are different ways to compose. And anyway, it's just a matter of taking into account these lines of tension. That's for one thing. Another thing I can tell you about this is, give me 1 second. For example, we can have, uh, cowboys. You can have these three cowboys here. Okay, corral type of style, kind of backlit, so they look more, mean and all that. or they mean business, and they go for it. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but they go for it. Okay, and then you have, wait, let me reduce this a little bit. And so, you know, you have this guy walking here, and anyway, and then you have another guy over here, and another one of his partners right behind him. Now you have, this is a vertical composition, right? Now let me get this in red. Now you have a triangle. We were talking about the rubber band that we expand or extend or we compress, etc. So there's a triangle here. There's a certain amount of tension. Now we can, playing with the lines of tension, we can now have another point of view. We have this guy working over here, and then maybe this other one is a bit more advanced, and the third one is a little bit more, you know, like kind of a halfway. Now what we still have a triangle, but now this triangle is more extreme. It starts pushing and pulling a lot more, and it's about how all this plays within the frame. Again, if you have, we can have the same triangle here, that here it plays like it has a lot of dynamics, a lot of tension, because it goes only almost from one side to the other and to the other of the frame, right? Because everything we said, everything is related to the frame around. Okay, say for example, we have exactly the same triangle, but here, the guys are tiny. The level of tension is not at all what we used to have in the first shot. Why? Because here everything is a lot more compressed. So this, the same, which is the same triangle, it kind of becomes like a unit. It becomes like a dot, like a spot. And now it becomes about, not necessarily about these three guys and the tension, that the lines of tension that creates between that we create between the three of them, but actually about this spot here and the void that we have, the characters have around. Now the shot becomes about something else, because again, take into account, it's not just the subjects, it's about the subjects that you're drawing within the frame, no matter what format it is. This case is vertical, that's fine. The important thing is not it's vertical, it's horizontal. The important thing is that now we created a moment in the story in which these guys are tiny and they're surrounded by a void. It's about their loneliness. It's about the way in which they are maybe lost, or maybe they are under threat, right? Because they're tiny against the elements, that kind of thing. All right, so lines of tension. We're going to create another one here. Talking about pressure and release. We have, again, just to give, okay, let's go for a square format now. Any composition that might appear unusual and therefore, you know, people don't use it much. It's like, for example, you can have the horseman here, you know, and he's coming over the hill and he's looking back, right? And obviously this is not the same as this, same format, but now we play the element, the horseman, differently. Now we played, like, for example, he's here, and he's in the top of the mountain. Now, he's still a very lonely guy here, very lonesome, in the middle of nowhere, for sure. But there is more balance. There is more balance in the shot. That's what's important. There's more balance in the shot. Why? Because the top portion and the bottom portion are fairly even. They're not. This is not perfectly in the center of the shot, but close enough so that there's a nice balance here. And we have the character coming over the hill, and the sky, the terrain, etc. It's a dry desert. But anyway, here we have the same, but all of a sudden the desert, it just becomes enormous. This thing is so overpowering in the shot. And then we have the guy real tiny here. And not only that, I'm talking about pressure and release. Now the guy is so pressured up against, again, I'm not composing the guy right up against, like, tangent with the side of the shot, right? But certainly he's pushed up by the terrain, and it becomes kind of a claustrophobic type moment in which this guy seems to be in trouble. It's uncomfortable, right? To look at this guy like that. So what happens is that, let me reduce the size of it for a second. All right, here you go. And now we can have this. And if we have this, we might fall into the thing that, oh, it's a vertical shot. How do I compose it? It's complicated. Don't think about it's vertical, it's horizontal, it's whatever. Think about what kind of a tension or lack of tension, what kind of a pressure or lack of pressure you want to create in the shot. That's what you have to, and then even if you have a shot like that, you can still bring the guy over here. And it does feel it's the same, it's a value composition because it gets the job done, puts the pressure on the guy is up against the, or it could be the other way around. Maybe it feels the weight of these amazing clouds, right, in the desert, this vast landscape that's so overwhelming. And he's here, tiny, tiny, tiny. But again, you can play the same horizontal landscape, and then the big clouds or whatever, and it's about the guy, it's pressured, and then you have this release area by contrast. But it doesn't matter the type of format that you're playing with. It doesn't matter. So anyway, so we have this, and obviously we have balance, unbalance, etc. Anyways, I'm going to do another one final example. Here's the thing. Let's say we have a queen that she is rallying her warriors, medieval warriors around, right? And now we want the shot to be about how of a big shot queen she is. So we have her here, expanding the sword and the cape and all that kind of stuff, and then she has excuse me, and now she has the shield like that, and it's all like it's expanding. She's expanding. And now, okay, so what do we want? What do we want the shot to be about? We want the shot to be about how important, how powerful she is. Okay, so if, say for example, we have a a, a horizontal shot. Now we're going to put the back of the heads of her warriors here, so maybe some spears, etc. But basically, she is powerful. She is, pressuring her crowd, with her dominance of the field. What happens is that we want to do it vertical. Yeah, not a problem. We follow the same idea. If we get too caught up on, like, oh, this is vertical. How do I do? No, play the dominance of the character. Play the dominance, and you know what I mean. You still see the guys over here, whatever. But again, it's just and then it's the same case. Same case. She has this pressure. We have this release area where she's kind of big and expansive, and the guys are her followers, her crowd are kind of pressured here. Say for example, we want the reverse. We want she's in a moment in her in her in the moment, we are in a moment where she is like, the king that's in trouble. Her people, her crowd is rebelling against her or whatever. And then, we're going to play her smaller in the shot. We're going to have a lot of space here, a lot of space that's telling us she's tiny. We're going to have, she's standing on the rock still. Now the crowd is going to be closer but bigger, and these guys they're going to turn into some type of almost a menacing shape overall, spears here. But again, if you go with this philosophy, it's not about, oh yeah, that's how you compose a horizontal shot. No, this is how you compose this shot, but you can also do it vertical. And now maybe you have her really here at the top, pressured up against the top of the shot, and this is the rock she's standing on, and then you have this, this big crowd here of warriors, etc. Looking really overwhelming, and she's tiny in the shot. She's still very visible. We don't lose her in the crowd, but these are different ways of again playing with tension. Okay, now tension. Maybe we can have the queen here talking in a low angle camera shot, and this is her crowd. All right here, spears, whatever. Okay, but then you can have, 1 second. All right, so we have this shot here, and now we're going to have that shot. And her crowd is here. And all of a sudden, remember, lines of tension. Lines of tension. This is softer. This is more tense. There's less distance here. It's more a close-up shot. There's division. There is this tension. It's a rubber band that you stretch, and you could say, oh yeah, but there's a back composition. There is a lot of empty space here. No, it's not empty space. This space is telling the audience about the distance between the two main elements in the shot. This is not wasted space. This is what tells people there is something wrong here. Again, then how much you want to push these things or not, that's another story. But these are all elements that I always constantly take into account. If you get this book, that'll be, I would really hope that you learn things that are valuable in your careers and they're valuable for your everyday work. As you know, I hope all the books in the frame collection are for you. Again, thank you so much for your time. This has been awesome. Have fun. Go enjoy, the rest of the expo, which is, again, this is such a wonderful event, and more next year. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.